I'm covering book 3 of the Indian Lake trilogy today, an incredible series. This is one I am so glad I read. Let me tell you why you might want to check it out. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this show, and welcome to our channel. If you're a first-time person here, I sure hope you enjoy this episode. And remember to give us a like if you do. But then check out all the other content here. I hope you'll subscribe so that you stick around for all the goodness Zach and I are putting out. So today, it's the horror element we're leaning into. Zach is off still moving right now, so you just get the dad today, but I think I can entertain because I'm going to talk about The Angel of Indian Lake, which is book 3 of the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones. This will be mostly spoiler-light, so if you haven't read it yet, that's fine, but there will be spoilers for the first 2 books in the trilogy, so you might not want to read this until you've read those first 2. Which are also brilliant. I recommend the whole trilogy. But if you have already read this book too, stick around for the very end where I have a little full spoil commentary just for you. This book was published in March of 2024, so it hasn't been out all that long, just a little over a year. And it is certainly the horror genre, but it's so much more than just a horror novel. I read this book because the first 2 books of this slasher-themed horror series were absolutely exceptional. There was no reason not to expect more of the same from the last book, maybe even better. And I was not disappointed in this series' conclusion. In fact, I was blown away. For the setting of this story, once again we return to the imaginary town of Proof Rock, Idaho, set in a rural region in the wooded and mountainous central area of the state, and located right alongside scenic, beautiful, and deeply troubled Indian Lake. 4 years have passed since the tragic events of Don't Fear the Reaper, book 2 in the series. Here's my spoiler-light summary. This novel, as with the previous 2, is both a story of Jade Daniels and of Proof Rock, Idaho. Both the woman and the location experiencing the consequences of their pasts. In the case of Jade, she spent the past 4 years in prison for crimes she did not commit during the incidents 4 years ago, though she did take other actions that were troubling and potentially illegal, but necessary. Those weren't the things she was in trouble for. But Jade has done her time and has returned to Proof Rock, the only home she's ever known, looking to get life back on track. And with the help of her extremely wealthy friend and benefactor, Letha Mondragon, she's now got a job teaching history of all things in her former high school, the position once held by her favorite and deceased teacher of her own troubled high school days. How does she get such a job coming out of prison? Well, being connected to Letha, who's underwriting much of the needs of Proof Rock, definitely didn't hurt. But also, she is qualified. She completed a college degree while in prison. She's actually ready to be an educator and to focus on history, something she actually enjoys. But being the novel that this is, and the trilogy that this is, you know things are not going to be all rainbows and unicorns. And following the slasher formula we know and love, this trilogy conclusion promises to have a higher body count, more outlandish killings than ever, and the greatest surprise revelations of all. And it fully delivers on all parts, which you'll need to read to discover for yourself. For plot depth, this novel is Stephen Graham Jones at his absolute best. I have dove into more of his books since completing this, and so I can say with confidence, he is at the top of his game here now, really shining. His character work, incredible. His plot mysteries, fantastic. Some of them flowing through from all the way of book 1 and finally paying off here. And his creativity in resolving the various plot points of the story is absolutely brilliant. If you find this book boring, I don't know what sort of book would intrigue you. Let's talk about characters. Jade Daniels is mostly surrounded in the story by characters we've already met in one or both of the previous two books. Very little in the way of new characters have been introduced here. But as with the second book, Stephen Graham Jones has leveled up these characters well over the 4-year interim so that they logically think, act, and even speak differently, reflecting the appropriate passage of time. Jade is absolutely the core of this novel, and it's her interactions with all the other characters and events that we follow. But unlike book one, we readers know we may 100% depend on Jade's perception and judgment now, and we ride along with this amazing character, cheering for her and hoping she pulls through the harrowing events about to fall. One other point I'll bring out here is that the deaths in this book have more causes than we've ever seen, as appropriate in amping up a slasher trilogy. And honestly, you'll never fully guess what's coming until you see it. And yet, I found everything made sense in a slasher sort of manner, and the actions of the characters involved are completely realistic, even when those choices are idiotic. For writing style, as I said, Jones has returned to a Jade-specific point of view for this book. This is what he did in book one. He went away from it in book two, but he's back to that style for book three. This allows us to experience and uncover all the mysteries and happenings just as Jade does, working with and for various people that she's trying to save, help, or even use. I appreciate this narrative approach, as it allows us to be just as surprised as Jade is, time and again. Jones does give us foreshadowing here and there, including some foreshadowing back in previous books that now we get to reveal. So astute readers will be able to predict a few of the key surprises before they are unfurled, but I guarantee you will not predict them all. And the way Jones delivers all of these is just delightful. I've got a number of themes that come out of this book for me, and the top ones I would share would be, well, firstly, trauma, healing, and growth. Jade's journey is marked by the aftermath of multiple horrific events and her time in prison, which sets her up well to be a mentor to trauma-surviving teens. The narrative delves deeply into the emotional and psychological aftermath of violence, highlighting how one heals or struggles to heal over time. Secondly, this is again meta horror. It's a genre commentary about slashers. Jones plays with slasher tropes through Jade's constant framing of her life in terms of horror films. At the same time, this novel critiques representation in horror. Jade notices a lack of indigenous presence in iconic horror films, and she uses that absence to her benefit in this story. Third theme, colonialism, gentrification, and inequality. Prufrock's recurring cycle of trauma mirrors larger patterns of colonial and capitalist injustice. The supernatural evil isn't separated from the human-driven violence fanning its flames. The tension between wealthy newcomers and established residents opens up discussions on cultural displacement and trauma. The fourth theme, Final Girl Reimagined and female empowerment. Jade embodies and challenges the slasher final girl archetype. She's layered, not just pure or virtuous, and transforms through confronting her demons. Another theme is cycles, past and present. The story suggests that trauma is generational and recurring. Prufrock keeps facing mass violence, and Jade hopes to finally disrupt the cycle. The resurrection of past events to traumatize the present parallels the resurfacing of buried histories and systemic wrongs. Final theme, supernatural versus human evil. And I can't tell you why, because too many spoilers, so I'll just leave it there. Let's talk about the trigger warnings here. There's physical violence and gore, as with the previous two books of the story. We've got graphic depictions of mass murder, brutal supernatural attacks, and bodily harm. I mean, again, it's slasher horror. Speaking of horror, there's also supernatural horror elements here. Horrific undead scenes featuring reanimated corpses committing violent acts. Child endangerment and abduction is a theme here because we do have children going missing and things happening, and even an icky thing happening regarding an icky character and children. So just be aware of that. Sexual violence and pedophilia is an element of this. It's not a major thing, but there's a character who's revealed as a child predator. That might be too close to home for some people, so be aware. Finally, fire, accidents, and mass trauma are on display here. Deadly forest fires, a chainsaw accident, collateral casualties throughout the town as mass events are happening. So if any of that sounds too uncomfortable to you, stay away from the book. The Angel of Indian Lake isn't just a slasher horror. It's a richly layered meditation on trauma, indigenous identity, cultural displacement, and storytelling itself. Jade's evolution pushes boundaries of how horror narratives can become powerful vehicles for examining real-world oppression, resilience, and healing. My rating and recommendation for this book is a 5 out of 5. This is by far the best of the 3 books in this trilogy and truly brings home how these books are much more than simply a slasher story. They're deep, even deeper than the depths of Indian Lake. All right, if you haven't read this yet, this is where you need to stop. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
The Spoiler Room.
You're still here, so you have also enjoyed this book already. Here's a little bit of full spoil commentary. It was such a hoot to see not 1 killer, not 2, not 3, but 4 sources of killings in this novel. Are you kidding me? And if you look at it the right way, there's even 6 different sources. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Letha, as well as the various rich, entitled people who moved into town. We've got Jade's father back from the dead and ready to get some killing on. We've got Cinnamon Baker back, not so crippled after all, eager to kill again. Third, we've got a heartbroken and unstable widowed forest ranger who arranges a bear rampage, resulting in yet another movie-based massacre. Fourthly, we've got a young boy lost in the wilderness who's gone frickin' feral, who kills his own mother, and a sheriff's deputy who has to put the boy down. Then, number 5, we've got Letha Mondragon killing the disgusting pervert custodian Rexall, mistakenly believing herself justified. And we've got some of this caused by the zombified Ezekiel and his choir when the rich boating enthusiasts caused damage to his submerged church, which sets off the supernatural vibes that are infecting the entire area. What an incredible and delightful absolute slaughterfest. Oh, and I was so thrilled to see Jade overcome it all. And even to be the one to figure out how to find little Addie in the end. One of the most impressive character development points of this story was the maturity Jade Daniels has achieved. She's been through some rough stuff, for sure, but rather than breaking her, it's truly forged her into the ultimate final girl who can become the true Angel of Indian Lake. It's just incredible. My final point, again, true to final slashers, there are some definitely tragic deaths in this story. And the one that hurt the most was the loss of Banner Tompkins. He goes from being someone we couldn't care less about to someone we hated to see taken out. That's great writing. All right, that's where I'll leave you. What do you think about this book? Use the comment box to share your own perspectives or to say anything about what I have said here today. I always read them. I appreciate you taking the time, and I will respond. Also, look in the show notes for other ways you can interact with Zach and I. Our Discord server has an invitation there, links to social media, our email, even our Patreon page. Thank you to all of you who support us regularly as Patreon supporters. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.